I have vivid memories of growing up with my grandfather, and he was a teacher, and he used to take us out into the woods when we were little kids when we'd go visit him, and he would find these creative ways to teach us about the world. You know, he'd say that we needed to go on a scavenger hunt to make some kind of potion that was going to help us fly or see through trees. We need to find the following plants, and in the process he'd go out and teach us about the leaves, and this is poison ivy, and don't touch this. And everything with him was this sort of educational game, and that sort of really ran through my family, and that there was always this sense of curiosity about the world. You know, they always say, never stop being curious and trying to expand your knowledge about what's out there. So that was very baked into my family. Something that we saw a lot in our family. If you have the privilege to know, you have the responsibility to act. And they would always try to find ways for us to volunteer on weekends or involved with a local soup kitchen or a program like that. And I can't say that we're the most volunteer-minded by any stretch. I'm sure there were lots of families doing a lot more. But that combination of wanting to be curious about the world and improve the world and feeling like you have this responsibility to do so, I think drives almost a lot of what I do and really got me where I am now and doing what I like to do now. I was trying to get my computer skills to be used for social good, and it's just not always easy to find those kinds of jobs. So I went further down the rabbit hole. I said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to learn artificial intelligence. I went off and got my PhD, machine learning stuff, because that's going to change the world. Well, I'll help blind people with computer vision. That's going to help them see, or I'll help create robots that will improve the world. And every time it just felt like more and more of a stretch. And again, when I got out, weren't really a lot of opportunities except in the big established technology routes. And so I was a little bit disheartened, but constantly looking for that way to bring technology back to social good. I think what the turning point was for me was that I was amazed by all of the excitement and energy in the data world, the technology and data world that had grown up in a grassroots way. That all of a sudden there was enough data and enough technology available that you no longer needed big institutions to make change. You didn't have to work at Google and trust that Google was going to make that change. People were getting together with hackathons and at nights and weekends sharing their projects on Twitter and on their blog posts. And I thought, this is so exciting. This is how we can actually work with data on our own, technology on our own. We'll start making those social changes. This will be so great. Going to this first hackathon and being so impressed with all the people sitting there with their math PhDs and their computer science skills and thinking, this is how we change. I can't wait to see results. They're going to be so cool. And in the end, the results were really unfulfilling. That people ended up making a lot of apps to help you park your car, apps to find local deals, stuff that was just really kind of pedestrian, first world problems. And so I just thought, man, we're in this data revolution where everyone is being inundated by data, whether they know it or not. Nonprofits have huge amounts of data, governments are opening up data, and we have all of these skills to work with it ourselves. Like, I could sit here in my apartment in my underwear and fire up like 1,000 computers to count all the words in Wikipedia, or every website. Like, that's insane, the amount of power the individual has. And so that was really the genesis of DataKind, was saying, hey, couldn't we take this energy of the tech world that now has finally been empowered to work on its own and drive it towards some kind of social good and connect with groups that don't necessarily have those skills. So DataKind is a nonprofit where we try to connect data scientists with nonprofits and social organizations to better collect, analyze, or visualize data so they can better do their missions. And the hope is that through this, we give data scientists a chance to have social impact, and you give social organizations a chance to maximize their impact through the use of data. United Nations Global Pulse did a well-being study, a global well-being study, where they basically asked everyone via cell phone, basically, how are you doing? So around the world, basically weigh in on how happy you are, how you like these conditions in your country. And it was this fantastic achievement for mobile technology, the ability to ask the world how it felt. I mean, it was incredible. They got all this data back. But then they realized they had to start answering even basic questions, like where people had responded from. They didn't really even have a good sense. Was it all across the globe, or was it just from a couple of people in Ohio? They weren't sure at first. And so our volunteers worked together with them, and they built a visualization of where people had responded over time. And it was a fairly simple visualization in visualization terms. It's just a map with some some points going over time, but it was really powerful in that it immediately spelled out the story of how this survey had spread, how it had started in India and moved across the globe. And this was just getting that visual was really important to them in understanding how they had sort of dispersed this message across the world. And what I really like about this is that they actually were, the group that worked with the UN Global Pulse actually got to go to the UN General Assembly and present this as their findings in a talk about how the development world, doing development, you think about data, how you have to have visualizations like this to help understand what's going on. We've seen groups that have actually built predictive models. So they've been working with GuideStar. When GuideStar came to one of our events, and they said, we have all this financial information about nonprofits. We'd love to know which nonprofits are going to do well and which nonprofits are going to do poorly. And by, you have to kind of define good and bad, and that's a big part of this process, is figuring out what the question is. But by the end of the day, these are groups that had worked with these guys for just the weekend. By the end of the day, you had like a miniature machine learning conference. Little groups of 4 or 5 people had broken out and created, multi-level regressions and come up with classification trees, whole new algorithms to try to figure out from this data which nonprofits were going to do well and which were going to do poorly. And it was really, blew me away how much had come out of just this really short-term engagement with these people and how much people were able to do. One of the takeaways from the GuideStar was that they had actually found the site and text reviews of different philanthropies. So saying, okay, I really liked Red Cross, it's really good philanthropy. And they realized, hey, if we could just get that data, we might be able to build a much better classification engine. Maybe we could predict based on what people are saying whether nonprofits are going to do well or not. And so they were able to work with the group, great nonprofits who had these reviews, and get them to open up the data. I mean, without sounding grandiose, I think it absolutely adds up to a better world. I mean, it's clear that data is becoming the currency of decision-making. And it always has been, and it's just that there's a lot more available, and there's a lot more that we can quantify. And so with that, we should hopefully see companies be able to adapt their programs. I mean, you see that in the tech world all the time. But if people could use, nonprofits have those same abilities, have the same data, and used for it, they could help improve the functioning and the missions of these nonprofits. To be honest, I see a world where DataKind doesn't have to exist. I see a world where every nonprofit has the capacity to use data to inform their missions, measure their impact, do all the same things that you're seeing Amazon and Google do. Something we try to show is that the data itself is neutral, and that what we really want to show people is how you can use data to do the things that are good in your company. Start from a good question, start from a place where you really want to improve, and show how data can feed into that. But I think it also hits on a second point, which is that people are often scared of data. They think that the data is going to be used to air their dirty laundry, or data is going to be used to catch them in some way. A lot of the open government data is being heralded not because it's, well, at least so far, not because it's going to create a better world, but because it'll allow us to more transparency to pick at the government's flaws. And so there's a lot of pushback because of that. And what we're trying to show in DataKind, and I see a lot of other groups trying to show as well, is that data makes your jobs easier, right? That you can build great things around it. That opening your data is not just so people can pick at your faults, but using your data and opening data so that you can actually see where you can grow and find your own opportunities. And we've really adopted that in our corporate culture. This trend that you're seeing, I think that some people have called like networked science or network discovery, and it doesn't apply just to the scientific world. We're seeing this shift from a sort of top-down world to a bottom-up world, where in this top-down world that we still largely live in, big institutions are in charge of change. Governments go out and commission studies, and they order top-down what will be collected and how it's done. Companies operate in a sort of top-down manner. You need IBM or Microsoft or whoever.
We'll work around it. Don't worry.
Okay, fantastic. But companies like every time I hear a buzz.
Okay. And if not, I'll just try and I'll do my best to edit around.
Appreciate that. The takeaway is that big companies would commissioned things as well, and that was how it operated. There was someone at the top that, and you would, again, know a lot more about this than I would, but it seemed like the top was in charge of how things changed. But now we're realizing that small groups of people with very specific skills and common goals, thanks to lower barriers in technology, thanks to more openness in communication, are able to come together and join together to do really amazing things. I think that's a really powerful new age that we're entering in society, where it doesn't have to, change doesn't have to come from these silos that dictate how it happens, but people with skills and common interests can work together, be motivated to make change themselves. And so that's, obviously I'm a little biased because that's something I'm very excited about, but I really do think this is sort of a new trend and something very important in the way that we now live. Getting out there and engaging is absolutely step one, right? I can't guarantee it's going to work, but I see a lot of people still sitting by the sidelines and saying, yeah, well, because it's not a guarantee, because I have to learn everything by myself, I'm not even going to bother. But you never know, right? What's going to catch on. And I think the lack of participation is one of the biggest obstacles for people, even just starting out. It's funny being on the other end of the camera of a disruptive hero, because I feel nothing like that in any way. And there's this, I think when people identify people who are disruptive or heroes or whatever they call them, there's always this feeling like they are different or they figured it out. And when I first thought of DataKind, I tried to pass it off to someone else. And not pass off, but I knew people who I saw as heroes. And I was lucky to be in touch with them and said, hey guys, you should start this. Like, I would love to see this. I'd love to be a part of it, but I'm not the one to start this. I can't follow this. You guys are experts, right? Like, and they all turned back and said, look, you'll find that when you have an idea, just getting it out there gives it life. And you'll see, it's like a journey. You'll find allies. Just putting it out there will get people along the way, and you'll see that this is really your thing. And I, for the longest time, fought against that, thinking, I'm not that person. I'm not the person to lead this. And they were absolutely right in the end, that all it took was just getting it out there and getting it started. And that was what gave it the momentum, and everything else has been playing itself out. So I still don't feel deserving to be even having this conversation with you. But if that's helpful to anybody else to know that, I would love to share it, because you just don't know where things are going to go until you just get out there and start it. And really, if it's your idea, if it's a thing that you're passionate about, that's really all you need.